if these rebel groups don't go along to the talks, what does it mean for the prospect of peace in Syria?
Well, we've had over 40 separate rebel groups, to include both the political side of the opposition and the military wing, reject these Russian-hosted talks. Billed as the Congress for National Dialogue, these talks were meant to be separate than the UN-hosted peace talks in Geneva. It essentially means that without the Syrian opposition at the table, to include the military wing, many are skeptical what these talks in Sochi could actually achieve. Remember, it was just Friday that Iran, Turkey, and Russia agreed to host these talks to move forward in late January. But clearly, given the events of the past 48 hours, the Syrian opposition, the Free Syrian Army, is accusing Russia of war crimes as dozens of rockets and barrel bombs continue to fall upon Idlib province, killing dozens, wounding dozens more. The Syrian opposition is claiming that Russia cannot be trusted as a mediator, given that the Syrian opposition blames Moscow for these aerial attacks launched allegedly by the Assad regime and possibly by Russian warplanes. So lots of bad blood going here ahead of these talks. Many worry that the peace negotiations are likely going to be stalled as the violence continues in these areas are meant to be de-escalation zones where fighting is not supposed to be taking place, yet as we're seeing from some of this horrific footage coming from northwest Syria and the province of Idlib, the fighting and the aerial attacks continue.
You say there's a lot of bad blood, which obviously puts into question whether Russia can be an honest broker in the Syrian process at all. But let's talk about the rebels and the opposition. How united are they?
The unity of the opposition remains a major contentious issue leading up to these peace talks. We've seen parts of the opposition peel off. In fact, just the former head of the opposition just resigned just a few weeks ago. We're seeing 40 different factions here that released the statement, although the positive note here is that there seems to be some measure of unity amongst the opposition when it comes to pushing back against what they view as undue Russian interference in Syria's affairs. It's still not clear whether or not a unified opposition umbrella can come to fruition so that they can speak with one voice in these peace talks. We're seeing that the opposition has a delegation that will go to the UN-hosted peace talks in Geneva. They believe that the Russians are trying to use Sochi as a means to undermine Geneva. Lots of questions still going on whether or not the opposition can be unified. What we do know for sure is that these barrel bombs and rockets continue to fall in Idlib, and many view that as a main cause for why the opposition is refusing to participate in these Russian-hosted talks.